It was 16 hours of violence and mayhem in America. Whites attacking a prosperous black neighborhood in what would come to be known as the Tulsa, Oklahoma Race Massacre. Hannibal Johnson is an author and historian.
It begins on Monday, May 30th, 1921, which is Memorial Day. There's a teenage black boy named Dick Rowland who shines shoes downtown. He's at work. He needs to use the restroom. Facilities are segregated. He goes to where he knows there's a facility available to him.
Operating the elevator in that building is Sarah Page, a 17-year-old white girl.
Dick Rowland enters the building, boards the elevator. Something happens, we don't know exactly what, but causes Dick Rowland to bump into, brush up against, or step on the foot of Sarah Page. She begins to scream.
Rowland was arrested the next morning and detained in a downtown courthouse. That afternoon, an article appeared in the newspaper implying a sexual assault took place. Racial tension was already running high in Tulsa.
Tulsa was a tinderbox or a powder keg. All that was needed was a catalyst or an igniter. That igniter or that catalyst, that trigger, was an elevator incident.
By early evening, a crowd gathered at the courthouse. Whites set on snatching the young man from jail to lynch him, and blacks set on ensuring that didn't happen. The details are hazy, but at some time around 10 p.m., a shot rang out. Chaos ensued. At some point later, the angry white mob broke into a sporting goods store in this building, looting guns and ammunition, preparing for what would come next. Violence raged in the area around the courthouse. In a telegram to the National Guard, the governor wrote, "Race riot developed here, several killed, unable to handle situation." By dawn, the crowd made its way to the city's most prominent black neighborhood. The heavily armed white mob, likely more than 1,000 strong, made their way from the downtown area to here, Greenwood Avenue, the heart of a prosperous African-American community known as Black Wall Street. The mob marched on Greenwood under the premise of putting down what it called a Negro uprising. They burned down homes and businesses, destroying almost everything. There were even airplanes circling the Greenwood neighborhood, an unusual sight in 1921.
The official version of events is that airplanes were reconnoitering. They were looking on the ground to see what was going on. Eyewitnesses say that the airplanes both strafed the community with bullets and dropped incendiary devices, bombs, on the community. They may have been kerosene or nitroglycerin.
Thousands of blacks were rounded up and sent to makeshift internment camps. The violence finally ended when National Guard units entered Greenwood and martial law was declared. By the time the siege was over, more than 1,200 homes and businesses had been destroyed. Greenwood was essentially gone. 37 official death certificates were issued, but most historians feel the true death toll was much higher.
The best estimate from the leading sources is that the range of 100 to 300 is the most likely range.
But the horrific series of events quickly faded from the public consciousness. For decades, little was known about what really happened, and this tragic history was rarely taught in U.S. schools.
Our history tends to be sanitized. We tend not to talk about the hard history. No less true here with respect to the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre.
In 2001, a commission released a report on the massacre, and public awareness has grown ever since. As Tulsa marks the 100th anniversary of the massacre, Hannibal Johnson hopes people apply the lessons of a century ago to our world today.
It's about our shared humanity. It's about valuing the dignity and respect of each and every other human being on the planet. If we each internalize that, then we don't have these things happen.
Jim Spellman, CGTN, Tulsa, Oklahoma.